For decades, the secrets behind Fleetwood Mac's rise to fame have stayed hidden, until now. Lindsey Buckingham, one of the band's core members, speaks up about Fleetwood Mac. From his early days with Stevie Nicks to the creation of the legendary Rumours album, Buckingham shares his side of the story, revealing what happened behind the scenes. Lindsey and Stevie's beginnings. Lindsey Buckingham first met Stevie Nicks in high school in Northern California. It was the late 1960s, and they were just teenagers with a shared passion for music. Stevie had just transferred to Lindsey's school during her senior year, and though their interactions were minimal at first, their bond would grow over time. Lindsey was already deeply involved in music, and while Stevie played guitar, she hadn't yet found her voice as a songwriter. It wasn't until after high school, when Lindsey joined a band called Fritz, that their paths began to align. By chance, a member of the band suggested that Stevie should join them as a singer. I think our drummer said, "Well, why don't we ask Stevie if she wants to join the band?" And so we did, and she did, Lindsey recalled. That band played around the Bay Area, and this first band was called Fritz. Stevie agreed, and soon the two were performing together across the Bay Area. Fritz wasn't just a high school band, they were opening for big acts like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. However, the band struggled to break into the larger music industry, and by the early 1970s, Fritz had dissolved. After Fritz, Lindsey and Stevie were at a crossroads. They had both invested so much into their music, and now their futures were uncertain. But rather than give up, they made a decision that would shape the rest of their lives. They formed a duo, Buckingham Nicks, and moved to Los Angeles to try and make it big. This period also marked the start of their romantic relationship, something that added both magic and tension to their partnership. In 1973, they released their first and only album together, Buckingham Nicks. It wasn't a commercial success, but it caught the attention of the right people. They faced many struggles, from financial difficulties to rejections from record labels, but the album showcased Lindsey's unique guitar skills and Stevie's emerging talent as a songwriter. They spent this time playing small gigs, barely making enough money to get by, yet they believed in their music even when others didn't. Though they faced many challenges, this chapter in their lives would be crucial to their later success. They were honing their skills, building their sound, and learning to work as a duo, both in love and in music. But little did they know, their lives would take a sharp turn very soon. Joining Fleetwood Mac. The turning point in Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks' careers came in 1974. By then, Buckingham Nicks had not been the breakthrough they had hoped for, and both were struggling to stay afloat in the competitive Los Angeles music scene. Then, a chance encounter at Sound City Studios would change everything. Mick Fleetwood, the drummer of Fleetwood Mac, happened to visit Sound City while Lindsey was working on some music. Mick overheard Lindsey's guitar work on the Buckingham Nicks album and was immediately impressed by his unique style. Fleetwood Mac was going through a transition at the time, having just lost their guitarist, Bob Welsh. Mick was looking for someone fresh to join the band, and after hearing Lindsey's playing, he was sure he'd found the right fit. Mick reached out to Lindsey with a bold offer: join Fleetwood Mac. But Lindsey wasn't interested in going without Stevie. Their bond, both musically and personally, was too strong to be separated. So Lindsey made it clear, if Mick wanted him, he had to take Stevie too. At first, this was a bit of a gamble. Fleetwood Mac was already established, and bringing in two new members, especially a female singer, was a big shift for the band. But after consulting with the rest of the group, including Christine McVie, they agreed to take both Lindsey and Stevie on board. This decision would become one of the most important in the band's history. While Buckingham Nicks hadn't been a commercial hit, the album played a crucial role in securing their spot in Fleetwood Mac. It demonstrated their talents, with Lindsey's guitar work and Stevie's distinctive voice showing that they could bring something new and exciting to the band. In 1975, Fleetwood Mac released their self-titled album with Lindsey and Stevie as full members. It was a massive success, marking the start of a new era for the band. Songs like Rhiannon and Landslide, written by Stevie, became instant classics. Meanwhile, Lindsey's guitar work gave the band a fresh, modern sound that connected with a new audience. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, tensions were about to rise. The rise of Fleetwood Mac. When Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined Fleetwood Mac, the band's sound changed in a big way. Before their arrival, Fleetwood Mac had roots in British blues with a more traditional rock sound. However, the addition of Lindsey and Stevie brought fresh energy and new influences. Their first album together, Fleetwood Mac, 1975, marked a turning point for the band and set the stage for their rise to international fame. The chemistry between the band members was immediate. Lindsey's unique guitar style and Stevie's haunting voice blended perfectly with the existing lineup. Christine McVie's piano and songwriting added another layer of depth, while Mick Fleetwood's drumming held everything together. John McVie's steady bass provided the backbone for their evolving sound. Together, they formed a blend of rock, pop, and folk that appealed to a wide audience. Lindsey played a huge role in shaping the band's music style. His attention to detail and ability to craft intricate arrangements set Fleetwood Mac apart from other bands of the time. He was constantly experimenting with different sounds, layering guitar parts, and pushing the band to explore new directions. This was especially clear on tracks like Monday Morning and I'm So Afraid, where his guitar work drove the songs. The self-titled Fleetwood Mac album was a massive success. Songs like Rhiannon and Landslide, both written and sung by Stevie, became instant hits. The album's polished production and mix of rock and pop made it accessible to a broader audience, earning the band a new wave of fans. It wasn't just about the music, though. The band members themselves were becoming icons. Their style, their relationships, and their personalities all contributed to their growing fame. However, with fame came pressure. The band was riding high, but tensions were beginning to build behind the scenes. As their popularity grew, so did the strain on personal relationships within the group. Lindsey, in particular, was known for his intensity in the studio, which could sometimes cause friction with the other members. Yet even with these challenges, the band kept pushing forward, focused on the music and the momentum they had built. What happened next would take the band to even greater heights, but at a personal cost. The Rumours album and the drama behind it. The making of Rumours in 1976 was a time of both creative brilliance and deep personal struggles for Fleetwood Mac. The band was at its peak, but behind the scenes, relationships were falling apart. Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks had just broken up after years of being both musical partners and lovers. John and Christine McVie, the band's bassist and keyboardist, had also divorced, adding even more tension to the group. To make things worse, Mick Fleetwood was dealing with personal challenges of his own, including the collapse of his marriage. These emotional battles didn't just affect their personal lives, they spilled into the music. The songs on Rumours were raw, honest reflections of the heartache and conflict within the band. Even with the emotional strain, they somehow managed to channel all their pain into creating one of the greatest albums in rock history. Lindsey's song Go Your Own Way was a direct message to Stevie. In it, he expressed his feelings about their breakup with lyrics that were both defiant and hurtful. On the other hand, Stevie's Dreams was her response, a softer, more reflective take on their split. These songs weren't just hit singles, they were personal dialogues set to music, with each songwriter laying their emotions bare. Christine McVie's contributions were no less significant. Her song, Don't Stop, was written as a message of hope even during the unrest she was going through. It encouraged looking forward rather than dwelling on the past, a sentiment that resonated not only with the band but with fans around the world. Even with all this tension, the band members knew they had something special in the music they were creating. They managed to put aside their issues, at least temporarily, to focus on making the album. It was far from easy. There were arguments, long recording sessions, and moments when it seemed like everything might fall apart. But the result was a masterpiece that captured the raw emotions of the band members while still delivering polished, unforgettable songs. But even after creating this masterpiece, the story was far from over. The aftermath of fame. The massive success of Rumours catapulted Fleetwood Mac into global stardom, but fame came with a heavy price. The album's popularity brought the band under intense public scrutiny. Every aspect of their lives was in the spotlight, especially their complicated relationships. For Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, and the rest of the band, maintaining personal and professional connections became increasingly difficult. After Rumours, the band embarked on a grueling tour schedule. Touring amplified the already existing pressures within the group. They were constantly on the road, performing in sold-out arenas while also trying to manage their issues. The same emotional wounds that fueled their iconic songs were still fresh, and the non-stop demands of touring only added to the tension. Being in such close quarters for long periods made it harder for them to avoid the conflicts that had been simmering beneath the surface. For Lindsey, the stress of balancing his role as the creative driving force behind Fleetwood Mac and his personal life was overwhelming. His breakup with Stevie had left unresolved feelings, and working together daily made it impossible to move on. Their dynamic on stage, where they performed songs like Go Your Own Way and The Chain, was a mix of passion and unresolved anger. It made for electrifying performances but took a deep emotional toll. The same was true for John and Christine McVie. Even after their divorce, they had to work side by side, pretending like everything was fine while the reality was much more complicated. This forced closeness, without time to heal or distance themselves from the past, weighed heavily on the entire band. They were all trying to hold it together, but it was clear that cracks were forming beneath the surface. In addition to personal struggles, the band faced enormous pressure from the music industry and their fans. After creating such a legendary album, everyone expected Fleetwood Mac to keep delivering hit after hit. But the weight of these expectations was crushing. The success of Rumours became both a blessing and a curse as they struggled to top their achievements. As tensions built, something was bound to break. Lindsey's departure from Fleetwood Mac. By 1987, the cracks in Fleetwood Mac had deepened, and the tensions that had built up over years of personal and professional conflict reached a breaking point. For Lindsey Buckingham, the pressure became unbearable. The band had continued to produce music after the success of Rumours, but the emotional strain, especially between him and Stevie Nicks, was too much to ignore. It was clear that their working relationship, once so productive, had become toxic. The conflicts weren't just about music, they were deeply personal. Lindsey's decision to leave Fleetwood Mac was not an easy one. He had been a major creative force behind the band, helping to shape their sound and success. But by 1987, after the release of Tango in the Night, he decided it was time to step away. The combination of strained relationships, the relentless demands of the music industry, and his desire to pursue other creative projects all contributed to his decision. He famously left the band just days before they were set to embark on a world tour, shocking fans and band members alike. Stevie Nicks, in particular, took Lindsey's departure hard. Their relationship had always been a complicated mix of love, tension, and mutual respect. But by the time Lindsey decided to leave, their personal history had made it impossible to continue working together. The rest of the band, including Mick Fleetwood, was disappointed but chose to carry on without him. Fleetwood Mac replaced Lindsey with two guitarists, Rick Vitto and Billy Burnett, but the dynamic was never quite the same. After leaving Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey turned his focus to his solo career. His solo music was different from what he had done with the band. It was more experimental, allowing him to explore sounds and ideas that didn't fit the Fleetwood Mac mold. Albums like Out of the Cradle showcased his signature guitar work and unique production style, but with a freedom that he hadn't experienced within the band. But leaving the band wasn't the end of Lindsey's story. The reunion and final split. After a decade of working on his solo career, Lindsey Buckingham reunited with Fleetwood Mac in 1997 for The Dance, a live reunion album and tour. This moment was highly anticipated by fans who had long hoped to see the classic lineup back together. Even with their complicated history, Lindsey, Stevie Nicks, Christine McVie, Mick Fleetwood, and John McVie came together once again. The reunion was a commercial and critical success, with The Dance becoming one of the top-selling live albums of all time. The chemistry was still there, and it seemed like old wounds had healed, at least on the surface. However, the reunion didn't mark the end of the internal conflicts that had long plagued the band. Lindsey and Stevie's complex relationship remained a source of tension. While they were able to work together professionally, the underlying issues never fully disappeared. Fleetwood Mac continued to tour and release music in the years that followed, but the emotional strain was still present. The final straw came in 2018 when Lindsey was dismissed from Fleetwood Mac. The exact reasons for his departure were never fully clear, but it was widely reported that disagreements between him and Stevie Nicks had reached a breaking point. Mick Fleetwood later confirmed that the decision to part ways with Lindsey was made to preserve the band's stability. For Lindsey, it was a painful and unexpected blow. After everything they had been through together, being forced out of the band felt like the ultimate betrayal. Lindsey Buckingham speaks out. In recent years, Lindsey Buckingham has opened up more about his time with Fleetwood Mac. Even with the challenging relationships and the dramatic breakups, Lindsey has expressed a sense of pride in the music they created together. He acknowledges the difficulties, particularly his complex relationship with Stevie Nicks, but he also sees the value in what they accomplished. According to Lindsey, the emotional struggles within the band often fueled the creativity that led to some of their best work. When it comes to his relationship with Stevie, Lindsey has spoken with a mix of fondness and frustration. Lindsey Buckingham's journey with Fleetwood Mac. Lindsey Buckingham's journey with Fleetwood Mac is a story of love, conflict, and music that left a lasting legacy. Though he left the band, his influence on the world of music is undeniable. Whether with Fleetwood Mac or as a solo artist, Lindsey's voice will continue to resonate. Be sure to like, subscribe, and check out our other videos on Fleetwood Mac and rock legends.